Next, let's talk buying signals. Ooh, let's get into this right now. Man, you're doing a presentation and you got that person right there. Oh, whatever. You ever have that person? They're just not into it. They're just like her. They're just like her. You just want to just like strangle or just grab her by, wake up, and they don't wake up. The problem is, you have the problem. When somebody's like this in a presentation, don't ever blame them. Blame yourself for not keeping them what? Alert and awake. So I'm going to show you how to make sure this does not happen to you and your audience. In other words, you know it's not going well when they don't ask questions. You know it's not going well when they don't ask questions. You know it's not going well when they ask the wrong questions. Like, what does that have to do with this presentation? And last but not least, when you're done, they have no questions. Don't you hate those presentations? You get to the end, there's like no questions. You're like crickets, and you're like, oh, what do I do now? Don't worry. That's why you're here. I'm going to show you what you do. All right, so here's what it is. Okay, so let's slow down here because I know I go fast. All right, we've entered the presentation. Cool slide. We got them to turn their camera on. They got the expectations. The expectations have been set, right? Now, you also know what your call to action is. You know what you're going to ask them, right? And you've built out this presentation. Now, okay, that's good. You're like 50% of the way, maybe 60. But now, how do we pull them into the conversation? How do we make sure they don't leave us in the conversation? I'm going to show you how. How do you hold the brain's attention? Now, the brain is interesting. Let me ask you a question. If this is the brain's attention, this is attention right here over time. And let's say you're doing a 60-minute speech, 45-minute speech, right? Call that 45 minutes right there. 45 minutes. Let me ask you a question. Is it possible? Is it possible? If this is 100%, is it possible to hold somebody's attention at 100% for 45 minutes? Yes or no? Y for yes and for no. Y for yes and for no. Which one is it? What do you think? Is it possible? Giorgio, depends. Mostly no. He's a lawyer, I think, in the background, right? Anna says no. Layla says no. The answer is no. It's not possible. It's hard. It's really hard to do. Now, you've seen different types of speakers. Have you ever seen, let me use a different color. Have you ever seen a speaker who starts out really well? He starts out really well, but then it just goes, it just dies. You ever see that type of speaker just goes, zhoo? I don't know why my board is drawing this little artifact here. I'll erase that. Okay? Let me just erase that so I get a clean slate. But in other words, can you keep somebody at 100%? No. Most people start talking and then they die like this. Other people, they're real good, but then they start getting really bad in the middle, and then they'll say something like this. In conclusion, or as I close out, as I show you my last slide, what does your brain do? Oh, let me pay attention because he's what? Finishing up. And they go back up. So these are different types of presentations. So the question is, how can I hold a person's presentation in an engagement, in a conversation like this? What happens is the following. Let me clear the board. What happens is the following. This is, by the way, if you don't remember anything else of what I've talked about, I want you to remember this. This is the big one. Is it possible to hold somebody at 100%? The answer is no. What happens is, but let's say right here is 80%. Let's say it's 80%, right? We'll put that line right there. Now what happens is, people start talking, you start talking, and then their attention starts to what? Dip. Now when their attention dips, you have to insert what I call a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt basically pushes them back up. For example, I can ask a question right there. Is a question a pattern interrupt? The answer is yes. And then their attention goes back up and it starts to drop again, and then I can show a video. Do you think their attention will kick back up? Yes, it'll kick back up. And then I can show, I don't know, a graph, right? I can highlight a graph, or it goes back up and I can do that. So in other words, what I do is I cycle people by asking questions, showing them videos. So let me see, we have questions. Give me some pattern interrupts in the chat. Give me some pattern interrupts. We have what? Questions you can ask. We talked about video. What else can you do? What else can you do to grab their attention? Poll. You can take a little poll, a little survey. What else can you do? Okay, got it? What else can you do? How about a demo? You can do a demo right in the middle. What else can you do? Interact with the participants, which could be a question, right? Could be a question, or just Mariella says, tell a joke. You can add humor. I saw somebody write the word story. You guys get it. You guys understand. So if I do that, let's say every 3 to 5 minutes, you time it yourself. You figure out what the timing is. If we do that every 3 to 5 minutes and we plan this out, what happens is you have a more engaging presentation. Let me show you how you bring it all together. Let me show you how to pull it together. Remember this slide? Let me go full screen. You remember this slide, right? So what I can now do, by the way, somebody said, Nawal says body gestures. You are so right. You are so right. If I planned out my presentation like this, what I can say is, you know, right here, I'm going to ask him a question. Right here, I might show a video. And then maybe right here, I'll do a little poll. And I definitely want to close out with a good story. And all of a sudden, you can plan it out. This is exactly how I do my presentations when I do big stages. So all it requires is you to really just think about planning these things out. And I'm telling you, it works. Without a doubt, it works. By the way, pattern interrupts or anything. Is this a pattern interrupt? Yes or no? Is that a pattern interrupt? Of course it is. That's exactly why I do it, because it's a pattern interrupt. I'm changing the view, right? So by changing the view, like, okay, what's he showing now? What's he doing now? When I write on the board, is that a pattern interrupt? Yes, like, what's he gonna write? What's he gonna draw, right? And again, you can be standing up, or if you can be sitting down, as somebody already mentioned, you can stand up and do something different. All these things help. So keep this in mind that even in a virtual presentation, you can do this. By the way, you don't have to have a smart board like this. You can use a regular whiteboard and just use it appropriately.